Welcome to Book Solid. I'm Aaron Plant. AI is showing up in this industry whether operators are ready or not. Software is already separating the ones who scale from the ones who stall. Every week on this show, we sit down with real operators and the people who actually understand this business to talk about what's working, what's breaking, and what's coming next. Most people talking about the future of this industry are doing it from the outside looking in. My guest today is not. My guest today has nearly 40 years of technology leadership under his belt, and unlike most people talking about AI and the future of this industry, he's actually lived it from the inside. He commanded a 200-soldier intelligence unit in the U.S. Army. He led a digital transformation at a $20 billion company. He holds 2 U.S. patents and now is VP of Technology for the Field Services Group at Fullsteam, where he oversees the technology strategy for the field services businesses. He's seen what it looks like when an industry embraces technology and when it doesn't. He's been inside the decisions, not watching them from a stage. Today, we're talking about AI, industry trends, and what separates the operators who are going to win from the ones who are going to get left behind. John Shaw, welcome to the podcast.
Aaron, thank you. I'm looking forward to our conversation and excited to be here with you today.
Appreciate you taking the time. Before we get into the industry stuff, I wanted to start somewhere a little different. So you grew up in Italy. You spent your high school years in Vicenza. Italian cooking came up when we were talking a few weeks back. And honestly, I wanted to go there first for a second, if you'll indulge me. Many listening to this show have lived in the same zip code their whole lives. You were embedded in a completely different culture. A different pace of life, right. A different way of thinking about work, quality, and time. Does any of that still show up in how you approach problems today?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could actually tell you that I work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, but I don't. I view work as systematically as part of my life. I tie it into virtually every day of the week, not so much it's overpowering. And I do try to carve out times, very typical of sort of the European culture that I grew up in, times like dedicated lunch, right? So that you could recharge your batteries, right? It was always a big thing in European culture. We won't get into the month-long vacation in August, which I wish we would follow in the United States. But, I think just endemically of just who I am, I try to find the right quality of life and work balance with family, with friends, with the things that I do and the hobbies. And that's all systematically sort of all grew out of growing up in Europe.
Is it fair to say that it's that there's less of a separation? So, there's the literal 9 to 5 is some people's lives, right? They start and stop. But you catch me or strike me as someone who's more, it's an amalgam. Everything's kind of, it's all mixed together. Personal, work, fun, effort, energy, whatever. It's all kind of mixed together.
Yeah, this is a really interesting conversation because in the past and I'll tell you the perfect example, right? So in the past, I've had these contracts, right? And I would work as a contractor, for some of the large corporations. And I would say, okay, you're going to get, 32 hours of my time every week, as an example. And they would expect that those 32 hours would come in the form of like a 9 to 4 Monday to Friday. Right. But they would see that I would send emails out on a Saturday at 11 p.m., right? So all of my hours would always add up correctly, but I was always in the mode of, I'm going to take a few hours, I'm going to do something with my family or myself. And then I'm going to go and pop on at 9 o'clock at night on a Saturday because, hey, I just want to get a couple things done. I'm going to, make sure that my tasks for the week are caught up. And so you would see this around the clock sort of behavior and people just couldn't understand, like, what are you doing sending an email out at 2 a.m? It's like, I'm not crunching for time. Right. It's just, that's how I operate. Like if I don't want to watch TV, I'm going to go and work on a project. And conversely, if I want to not work on a project and watch TV, that's what I do. But I do work around, but it's about the balance, right? It's about inserting yourself in a place that's really comfortable and not overwhelming yourself with just one thing.
And I think we've got the right audience here, right? Because we're talking to operators and these are people who made this life decision in the same way. It's like they're running a business, they're doing it on their own. Who knows when they're working all the time and trying to carve out ways to find that work-life balance. But it's not a 9 to 5 scheduled thing. It's a get it done to get it done. So I'm sure everyone here can resonate with that.
Yeah, service operations, Aaron, and you know this. Service operations, no matter what industry you're in, if it's a service operations related business, and you own the business, you feel like you're
All the
working all
time.
the time. And it's kind of important, right, to scale back a little bit and say, look, I have to decide now between working 7 days a week or finding a balance and a quality of time that doesn't land me in the hospital with a heart attack by the time I'm 45 years old,
Exactly.
right? So super important.
Well, let's talk about the military piece because I think it connects directly to what we're talking about today. You commanded a 200 soldiers signal intelligence unit in the Army. That entire discipline is built on one principle: see what's happening before the other side knows that you're watching. You've spent the last several years studying how technology is reshaping field services. What signals are you picking up right now that most operators have not tuned into yet?
Boy, the sort of the topic that we're going to work ourselves into, which is data, right? Understanding your data, and allowing the technologies of today, artificial intelligence being the biggest of those, to really drive your understanding and the direction that you're going to take with your business. And I know that we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and I don't want to sort of embellish further until we get on some of the more interesting topics.
Yeah, well then let's get into it. Totally agree. Let's start with cash, with money. I want to start there because I think it's the most concrete thing we can talk about and the most immediately useful for operators that are listening. So what's the most expensive thing a hauler does for free right now? Work being done, assets out there, services being performed that should be showing up on an invoice but isn't.
I'd always lay it on a particular item, like unbilled extra days or overweight charges that were missed or waived, and I always, fuel charges, right? So I always tied it to this one thing. But then as I thought about it more, my maturity and my thought about that fell back to one thing, right? And that is, if you don't bill for extra things, or not extra part, let me be clear. You're not looking to bill for extra things. You're just looking to bill what is correctly or should correctly be billed. It's the discipline of doing that. So as originally, when I would think about these answers and we would have our conversations, I would say, oh, it's unbilled extra days, it's overweight charges, it's this. But then I think about it and I go back to the owner operator to say, are you disciplined enough in your business to complete the billing, right? To make sure that you go back to the job that you took in, no matter what industry you're in, and ensure that you have all of the right line items in your invoices, because lack of discipline leads to unmissed charges. Unmissed charges leads to money left on the table and uncollected funds to drive your business forward.
And that's found money, right? Revenue that already exists in the business, but it's not getting captured. We're not creating it. We're not creating, I don't know, superfluous charges or trying to be someone we're not. We're just getting our fair share.
You've done the work, right? Charge for the work. And just don't forget to charge for the work so that you can collect those unfound dollars that are truly yours.
So thinking about those unfound dollars, how much do you think the average hauler is leaving on the table every month without realizing it? And is it like one big hole or 100 small leaks? That's a typical problem for an operator.
Yeah, fantastic question. And I will say to you this way. First of all, it's the old, you've probably heard this adage, death by 1,000 cuts, right? Yeah. So death by 1,000 uncharged items. It's very seldom that someone would not charge for a large block of things, but a mischarge, let's just say on average, and by the way, let me answer your question real fast. It's roughly in the neighborhood of 50 to 20% of your revenue.
Wow. Okay.
Can sometimes, as much as that, can be attributed to not charging for items. And just think about that. So if you miss an extra day charge and you own a container or a bounce house or a porta potty, one mischarge for that day, there's 20 days, and let's just joke, just for argument's sake, it's a $200 item and you got 20 working days of Monday through Fridays, even though most of them a lot of times happen on weekends. You're already at $4,000. That's a significant amount of money. That's $48,000 a year. So again, goes back to that thing about being diligent so that you don't have the death by 1,000 uncharged items. And that way you're collecting things when you need to be collecting things. It's kind of, it's kind of important, right?
20%. Yeah, I'd be looking for that. That's more than couch cushion coins that we like to joke about.
That's
Those
right.
Are
That's
stacks of stacks of hundreds hidden under the couch. So I'm gonna go check my couch when I get home. You've got a really unique view of the industry that,
Yeah.
the ground level getting started or even mature operator doesn't have, I'll call it the privilege of, right? Because you could see kind of many things at once. What's the one thing happening right now that most operators are completely asleep on in the industry, you'd gather?
Yeah. No, this is a great segue and a lead into really sort of what we're going to drive to. And that is operators have to be mindful that technology does augment what they do, right? You could be an operator and say, oh, hey, my business is a service business. Look, we're a lot of just greasy pencils on or dry erase markers on a board. And and maybe you're successful at running the business like that, but that only is good up to a certain point. And then there's things that start to happen like data insights, trends, net revenue margins, uncollected funds. Those kinds of things then start to create problems. Right. So you can't be asleep on the fact that there's software built for your industry and that AI is driving a complete transformation of that software. Right. And in turn, that transformation affects your business in transforming for a more profitable, potentially profitable alternate version of your business. Right. So that's kind of what I think a lot of people sleep on.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So it's natural. Again, it's entrepreneurial. A lot of work, like we talked about before, trying to find that balance between work and play. And part of that is because you're bootstrapping everything and doing it on your own, right? And so it's
Agreed.
hard to stop and think, yeah, if only I introduced this thing, this technology aspect, it could, reduce my time, make a better customer experience, et cetera. And so it's good to sit and pause during that and think about, okay, I actually need to make the time. I've talked to a bunch of operators and they always get to this inflection point the same way. I don't have the time to do the things that are going to save me time. And the only way to get through that is to actually stop and do it.
Right. Exactly.
So looking back at the last 12 months, more narrow, like more specifically, what's actually shifted? What's changed in the industry that operators either they didn't see coming or you didn't see coming or underestimated when it did finally come?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I will tell you is this, right, is that, artificial intelligence today, 12 months ago was still, a very faint blip on a radar. 6 months ago, that blip became a pretty significant factor in the growth of a lot of businesses. And it's changing so fast. Artificial intelligence is maturing so fast that it's sort of creating this chasm where you either join artificial intelligence and you bring it into your business, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that transforms your business, or you ignore it and then you run the risk of, if you recall back in the 80s, when mainframe fought open systems, right? Yeah. So it was the idea of, you're going to keep running on these monolithic computer systems, or do you link a bunch of computers together that, by the way, is what helped transform the internet and become what it was today, right? So we're at that chasm now. Do you jump on board? You try to leap it and stay with AI and grow with it? Or do you just kind of wave it goodbye as it leaves the station and say, hey, I'm good. I'm going to keep doing this with a dry erase marker on a board. I don't know, but I will tell you, as we talk more about this, some of the interesting nuances of why you want to embrace that technology and move forward with it.
We will convince you you're going to want to get a ticket on that train by the time we're done here.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so that was looking back. What does the next 2 to 3 years actually look like for operators who are paying attention, do you think?
Yeah, so we know now that AI helps to find insights on your business, to mine and build pictures of your business that give you a lot of information about how you want to price things, the marketability of your business, how what are the most profitable routes and things of that nature. Where AI is going to drive the next level of transformation, because it's already started, is how you look at automation. So in the field services industry, and it doesn't matter what industry specific or what focus of the industry specific, whether it's dumpsters or porta potties or, running a team of field service guys out there, the repetitive nature of those businesses, right, are going to be replaced, or could potentially be replaced, and I think it's going to happen, with more artificial intelligence based systems, so that your back office dispatchers who at one point were manually figuring out this truck on this calendar day, oh yeah, okay, now I got this gap, all right, so I'm going to go fill this truck and stick it in here, right, or this container or this porta potty or whatever it happens to be, will be an automated process, and it will do it so efficiently and on the fly and in real time, so that if one vehicle is reporting a slowdown on a highway, that it alerts all the other vehicles that are potentially using that similar portion of the route for their own day's worth of driving. It's just an example. I mean, there's lots of these examples, but the immediate and definitive nature and the automation behind AI in the next 2 to 3 years will completely transform how businesses are going to operate.
And it sounds like, too, it's not only just providing it. What you just said just reminded me of Waze, right? In a way, it's that's the same, like that live instant reporting of change. But I presume it'll also provide an enormous amount of data so that you actually see literally how much you saved from making that reroute decision, right? Are we heading there where it's like, oh, that was worth $150, in terms of what you saved?
Yeah, I think I agree. And look, I've worked on AI projects where one of the components of building the AI platform is to allow the owner or the operator or the leader of that particular business to turn these knobs, these weights. So to your point, Aaron, what I mean by that is maybe you have an owner operator who's interested in least amount of fuel consumption. So they turn that knob to favor things like routes for least amount of fuel consumption. Or someone would want, listen, I only want to take jobs on my most profitable routes. So it's a margin-based, routing system that AI is told to weigh heavily towards. Or maybe it's a carbon footprint. Maybe, you love hugging trees, and we decide that we don't want to pour more carbon dioxide into the air. So we're going to take routes that are calculated to show a less CO2 footprint. Lots of ways to skin that cat. But what's important about that is that that's what AI does for you, because otherwise, you would need a team of MIT, graduates crunching routes for you. And I don't know about your business or anybody else's business, but I don't have that kind of budget, right? Businesses don't have that kind of budget, and they don't have that time. Customers' expectations are changing. They want stuff now, right away, repeated, right? So you're challenged with that, and AI is going to completely transform it.
All right. So before we switch full on, talk it through, if you could tell every operator one thing to stop doing immediately, just one, what would it be?
Boy, let me give you a couple, man. But no, the biggest one is, it's twofold. It's I run this thing by my gut feeling, or, hey, this is how I've always done it. Oh, think about that.
Favorite words.
Right? Aaron, if you failed at something and you keep repeating it with the different, and how you have a different expectation, isn't that the definition of insanity?
That's what they say.
So I always encourage operators to stop doing things repeatedly over and over the same way, right? And step back from that and just start thinking about creative implementations of different things, whether it's your sales approach, your marketing, how you are dispatching your assets, whatever those happen to be in whatever industry you're in, right? But get away from that's how we've always done it, or I'm just going to run it this way because it kind of feels right. You just got to stop doing that.
Agreed. All right, let's talk AI, because we're basically legally obligated to do so. It's a podcast, and I want to be direct about this because I think there's a lot of noise right now to that group of haulers, operators who think AI is something for tech companies, something that doesn't apply to them. They don't want that ticket to that train that we were talking about. Are they already behind? Is there hope? Can they grab the caboose before it leaves the station?
Yeah, if the AI, well, not if the AI station, the train is
It's
already
leaving.
leaving the
Yeah.
station. So yeah, you're right, Errol. You're gonna have to jump on that caboose at some point. But look, the cool thing about this is that you shouldn't be afraid to implement AI because you can do it in tiny pieces, right? You don't have to go all in at one time, right? And you can so let's be clear, first of all, that AI is not about replacing trucks, right? It's about making your business sharper, right? It's about increasing your level of understanding within your business because it reads and interprets data a million times faster than you can. And some of the really good early use cases of AI are things like quoting or call summaries, dispatch notes, customer follow-ups, billing exceptions. Remember, we talked early on in this podcast about what are some of the things that they're leaving on the table, right? They're uncollected funds, billing exceptions, and asking AI to look at every invoice and tell me if I've missed a billable line item is a great, just quick use case for AI. And then the last one that I could just come off the top of my head is about collections, using AI for collections. So lots of repetition in the industries, particularly in the field services industries. This is a great time to use AI to start tackling some of that repetition and getting it off your desk.
So does that mean the rentals industry is a tech business now, whether operators like it or not?
No, it's still an operations business. Yeah, you can start, you can try the domino approach, which was, in the 1960s, we were a pizza company, and today we are a technology company that makes pizza. Right. You can try to go down that route, but at the end of the day, you're an operations business, right? You still got trucks, you still got drivers. You're still loading whatever it is, whether it's containers or waste or recycling, or you've got porta potties and you're cleaning them out. All of those things are still operations first. So AI does not replace it, but it does certainly help you manage that better.
And managing it better, right, theoretically, will improve the customer experience.
Managing it better will improve the customer experience. And let's not forget, though, that you can't compete on pricing today. Commodity pricing is what it is, right? You might skim a dollar here, a dollar there to beat the guy down the road who offers the same services, but customers' expectations are changing. And to meet those customer expectations, you have to put systems in place in your business that allow you to respond in a more nimble or agile way, right? And that's quotes, dispatching, communication, collections, right? Those are the kinds of things and how you need to look at the business where you want to adapt AI to differentiate.
And here's what I keep thinking about, the operators who are going to win with AI, are they going to win because of AI itself or because they already built the right operational foundation underneath it before they implemented AI?
You got to have the right operational foundation, right? It's like anything else, right? So in the technology world where I came from, and even back in the military, bad data produces bad outcome, okay? And so bad operations is only amplified by AI, right? And just think about that. You got a system that is smart enough to tell you that, hey, your margins are bad because of this, and then you don't do anything about it operationally. That doesn't help you grow your business or improve your margins, right? Your net revenue. So you've got to remember, AI is going to amplify what's already there. The trick now is to clean up your processes in your operations to allow AI to really help you leverage the positive and the strengths and then move forward from there.
Yeah, we have a saying as it relates to just technology in general, and of course AI being a big part of it, is if your business is healthy, that technology stack will help amplify that success. If it's not healthy, it will let you know. And so that's still a positive. No matter what, deploying that technology will give you that opportunity to improve your business or scale and grow your business, right?
Agree 100%, Aaron. That's exactly how you have to look at it.
We got to whip that into a 2-sentence quickie,
a quick
tagline. I got to workshop that.
Yeah.
Well, any other AI related lessons? So if we think about, okay, let's say I'm ready to get on that train. I made that leap onto the caboose, and I'm here. Where should I start? What should I focus on? Should I, jam all the data into it? Where should I start my approach on how to leverage it? If I'm going to start using AI, what should my methodology, my thought process be as to where to deploy it?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people are apprehensive about AI, and unless you've been doing it for as many years as I have, you don't just you don't you just don't dive right into the pool,
Right.
right? You want to really start looking at just little bits and pieces that give you insight. So, kind of like what I had described before, if you've got repetitive tasks, that's really a great place to start, right? Having AI check every invoice for missing line items that could be billed is a very small way to implement AI. But here's the thing, guys. You don't just take, ChatGPT or Claude or something, and then you point it to a data set because A, you don't know if your data is good in that data set, and B, do you even have a data set? Because if you're using stubby pencil or, if you're using dry erase marker on a board, AI, it doesn't work so good against dry erase marker. So you've got to make the fundamental decision to move to a piece of software that then begins to collect that information, right? How you're billing, your orders, your customers, your routes, distances, expenses, etc. You've got to encapsulate it all someplace so that you can begin to point AI against those little things that you want to start testing out. I think a lot of that quoting, billing are really great low-hanging fruit areas, but you got to start somewhere with a piece of software that collects this data, right? Otherwise, you're not going to, I've never pointed AI at a dry erase board, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to work.
You could take a picture and put it in as part of your prompt input, I guess, but that's you doing that every day and with every pen stroke change. That's probably not the most efficient way to use AI. It feels like
probably not the most efficient.
It feels like putting an electric engine in a steam car. It just feels like counterintuitive.
Exactly.
When we think about the philosophically deploying it, and thinking about what you said earlier with I call it the Amazon syndrome, but this like I want everything now instantly as a customer. Is it a good place to start with the customer experience to say, okay, like how can I leverage AI or any other technology tool to actually, help that experience first? Or is it better to start kind of at the end at the invoice side and say, okay, I'm going to put this efficiency process in here because it's going to help me as an operator. Where's the better place to start?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that boils back down to the nature or the fundamental character of the person that owns the business. And I'm going to explain why. So you have some who put sales focused first, right? All right, sales, which by the way, lots of activity in your business does not equal productivity, right? Nor does it equal higher revenue or net margins or net revenue, I should say. Okay. So, because if you've got bad processes and you're still doing high activity, you're still probably producing low net revenue. There are those that'll counter that argument, but that's generally how it works. So you've got those that are sales minded.
So is that like a limit of sweat equity? So instead of you're working harder, not smarter, but there's some ceiling with that capability.
There's some, right? And you ask yourself at the end of the day that, hey, I had 20% more sales last month, but I only made 3% more money. Like you have that. Those are the kinds of numbers where you go back and you have to look at it and say, okay, well, what am I doing wrong? Right. And if you're fortunate enough to have all of your data sitting in a platform that allows AI to look at it, you can grab some very interesting insights if you know how to your point before, Aaron, if you know how to prompt AI to ask those kinds of questions in a way that generates the insights you need. But so you've got that sales-minded person that's doing all this or that's approaching it from that perspective. And that's generating new business. But then you've got the collection-minded person. Okay, so who's that guy? The collection-minded person is the one that's making sure that their invoices are buttoned up, that there's nothing going over net 15 or net 30 days or whatever the contract terms are, that they're spending time ensuring that every invoice is paid, and that all the monies have been appropriated to the right places. So you got the sales guy, you got the collection guy. And it really depends fundamentally at the end of the day, the kind of person that you are and the kind of business that you run that's going to drive where you're going to start pointing AI to start doing some of the repetitive activities that AI can be good for. Right.
So no matter what, we've learned is we got to capture that data better than I love your grease marker reference. That means we're both gone to the Wayback Machine, but I can say I remember it. Writing it down, whether it's on a papyrus or in a spreadsheet, we want to move away from paper, pen and paper, even spreadsheets, and into a system that can not only capture the data, but look at it, analyze it, and give you some more power in visibility in your business on day to day.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is when you look at that data is, there's two ways to prompt AI today, right? There's the active, I'm giving you instructions following a certain prompting methodology. And I strongly encourage those who want to dabble with AI is to read about those prompting methodologies. One of them is called AIM. Then there's about 3 or 4 different strong methodologies, but then there's the part that's always left out with dealing with AI is ask AI to ask you questions so that it understands what you want it to do. And so what I do sometimes when I'm in prompting and not looping in AI, which is a whole nother capability, I literally just say, give me 20 questions, ask me 20 questions so that I know what I'm trying to accomplish. And then it'll go right through and ask you the questions, then you answer them. And now you've got a stronger sense that, okay, my prompts are definitely heading in the direction that AI is going to produce the kind of insights or input or output that is going to help me drive my business to the next level.
That's been a game changer for me. Ending every prompt with a ask many questions you need. And okay, so at first, obviously there's clarity, right? You get clarity, you make sure what you're trying to do, it's going to point in the right direction. But what I guess the unexpected gain I got out of it was better ideas. Like the questions prompted me to think, wait, if I did it this way or I asked for this and this, that's actually even better than what I came in here to try to accomplish. And so which is really the point of AI, right? The differentiator from a tech perspective was always that natural language, right? I'm talking to it instead of having to understand coding. And that's allowed us to have conversations with ourselves essentially, but better ideas have come out of it, at least for me.
So let me pose it to you this way, Aaron, and let this bake in your noodle and bake in the collective noodles of your audience. Are you prompting AI or is AI prompting you? I don't know.
It feels like a chicken and egg question.
Yeah, that's right.
It's definitely something to nosh on. The answer is probably, or my gut reaction is to say probably a little bit of both, right?
I agree.
Well, one last question and an important one. What is the most important, and you're going to have to think about this, so I apologize for putting you on the spot, but what is the most important lesson you've ever been taught and who taught it to you?
Wow.
These are deep thought. This is a deep thought closing question.
Yeah. It would have been my dad. My dad's passed now. He died about, 19 years ago. It's been a long time. He said something to me one time and it never resonated until after he had passed. And he said, speak soft, sweet words. Okay. And so for the longest time I just couldn't understand. And I knew that he had been quoting someone where he had got the quote, but he always practiced that because my dad was a very soft-spoken person who never, he wouldn't get into verbal confrontations, but he had a way to manage temperatures and keep everything low. And as I got older and I got a couple more gray hairs on my face, I started to reflect back on that. And that's sort of how I go through life now is there's very little that should drive you to the point where you have to be combative verbally, please, not physically. There are too many things that are happening in life. And when you think about it, what is the final sum game of what it is if you're constantly tense and argumentative when you can approach things from a softer way? And the final part of that quote, which is speak soft, sweet words, is because at the end of the day, they're easier to eat. So if you've got to eat crow, those soft, sweet words are easier to do than saying those combative words that you've got to turn around and eat at the end of the day. So that for me is a life lesson that I've taken with me everywhere. And And even to this day, and Aaron, you know that, right? I don't get bent out of shape. I try to really find I always look for the best aspects and qualities within people. And I want to draw the most out of the conversations I have, because even at the age that I'm at now and all the years I've been in this industry, I still have a lot to learn. And I learn them from the most interesting places, whether they're younger people than me, older people than me, different industries. But I'm constantly speaking soft, sweet words to engage with the people around me.
John, in thinking over the last 40 minutes, here's what stuck with me. You spent your career reading signals before anyone else could see them. That's exactly what separates the operators who scale from the ones who stall. They see the leak before it becomes a crisis. Most operators are running their businesses on memory and phone calls and that greasy pencil we were talking about. The gap between what they think is happening and what's actually happening is where money disappears. So close the gap. That's the assignment this week. If this moves something for you, send it to an operator who's still running blind. That's how the show grows. Subscribe to Book Solid on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. And don't forget to follow us at Book Solid Pod on all the socials. If you want more info or to be part of the show, visit our website at booksolidpod.com. Thanks for listening.